hear anyone and everyone's story about their journey, because we never know who it could help support or change their life in a positive impact. And so I really believe that women should be sharing their stories with people. And so that's why I started it. And I like to get you on and just let you talk. And I usually mute my end just in case I have a little one wanting to talk in the background. And just let you open up and, tell us about yourself and then tell us about your story. That's really what I do on here.
All right. Well, I guess here we go then. Well, married my college sweetheart. We decided to wait until I was almost done with school to try getting pregnant. That way I would still have my degree. Heaven forbid anything happened. I would have it. And so I actually got pregnant while I was finishing up student teaching. I have a degree in early childhood special education. And I lost that baby right in the middle of student teaching. It was horrible.
I'm sorry. I know that was really hard. I'm sorry.
It was. And let's see, when was that? 2011. So we had been married for not even 2 years yet. So it was rough, but great support system. I mean, I've got 3 lovely boys now. And so hindsight is 2020, and it wouldn't have been a healthy child. There was never even a heartbeat, and lost it at between 6 and 8 weeks. So, I'm okay now that it's way in the past, but of course it was not easy in the time.
Right.
And then I got pregnant again. So I was supposed to have that baby in May of 2012. I ended up having my very first child in November of 2012. So in the grand scheme of things, just a few months later. And it worked out well because I was able to keep working until my husband graduated college. And so it was good financially in the long run. But for that baby, he was my really tough labor and delivery story. So as I think all first babies tend to be, because you have no idea what you're doing and what to expect, really, even no matter how many moms you talk to, it's different for you.
I agree.
So lived in a little college town, and the OBGYN I was going to, I was on Medicaid. We were poor college students. And so I was going in twice a week to check the baby after my miscarriage, just to make sure he was doing okay. And then I guess the protocol was to let the mom push for 2 hours before the doctor would come into the room and see what was happening and see if he could get the process going. So I had walked probably about a mile that day with my mom, who had come into town, and then we went shopping after that. So I was walking around the mall, and I ended up going into labor at midnight on my due date. My water broke as I was getting into bed.
Wow.
It was very much like a movie. It was Niagara Falls down there. So I'm like, yep, my water broke. And so I had strep B. I had to go straight to the hospital to get put on antibiotics. So that was not fun, not having any sleep and having to go to the hospital. But right down the road, not too bad. And I was in labor for 14 hours with him. And got the epidural because my pain tolerance is not high. And then they kind of discovered I didn't really progress past the 3 centimeters. So I had to get put on Pitocin as well. And so that just made it pretty intense. I had to get on oxygen because I wasn't relaxing between contractions. And so it was a really rough labor. And then pushing for 2 hours during the delivery, nothing happening, getting so exhausted. The doctor finally comes in and sees that my baby is posterior, which for any of your listeners who don't know, because I didn't know, his occipital bone was facing the wrong way. He was getting caught on my pelvic bone. And so the doctor had to push him back in, flip him around, and then pull him back out, vacuum him out. And so that was super comfortable, even with an epidural.
Yeah.
And he told me that I have to vacuum him out. He's going to lose some of his hair. And I said, I don't care. Get him out of me. I am tired. I can't do this anymore. And he basically yelled at me said, yes, you can, be quiet. And I'm like, oh, how old was I? He was born into, I was only 23. I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did not like that doctor after that. And we moved shortly after. So no big deal. Anyways, but so he finally came out and then he aspirated meconium onto my leg. And so they whisked him away. I didn't even get to hold him. And they had to put him on antibiotics because obviously that's a little bit dangerous. And so I had the epidural. I didn't really think I could mama bear my way into a wheelchair to go see him in the NICU. So I had to wait until my epidural wore off so I could walk down there. And so my mom and my husband went down to see him to make sure he's doing okay while I was recovering a little bit. But yeah, it was rough. I mean, wanted to do skin to skin, and I don't know if this was the reason why, but my breastfeeding never really, my milk never really came in, and I think it was all the stress of the delivery and whatnot, and there wasn't really a lactation consultant, and I didn't know what I was doing, so he was breastfed and formula fed for a while, and then it ended up just being formula because I was so exhausted because I was pumping and feeding him, and it was just a little rough while we were moving across country.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Yeah, so all that stress, it just was not good. But yeah, so he had to be on antibiotics for 3 days, and I got released from the hospital that second night, and I had to leave my baby in the hospital. And that was the worst thing I have ever done, or the worst emotional thing besides the miscarriage that ever happened to me at that point. And I realized that a lot of moms leave their babies in NICU, and I'm not trying to say that I had anything happen like that. It was just one night. But I remember the nurse hugging me because I was in tears signing my release papers because I did not want to leave my baby in the hospital even for one night. And she was so nice to me.
Oh, that's great.
I should have written her a thank you card, but we were moving. So, yeah. So I left him one night, and then I came back for him the next day, and he had gained enough weight, and he was able to come home after being on antibiotics for 3 days. And
oh, great.
Then my husband graduated 2 weeks later, and we moved across the country back home, which is Tennessee, which is where we are now. So that was
very
traumatic first birth.
Yeah.
But he came on his due date, so you can't be too mad, right?
That doesn't happen a lot. So yeah, we could be happy for that.
Exactly. Did you want me to talk about my other two as well?
If you want to, that's totally up to you.
Okay. So second one was almost 2 years later. They're only about 21 months apart. So that was fun, 2 under 2. But his pregnancy was great. I mean, he was born in August, so a little bit of a heater in Tennessee, so that wasn't very fun. But it was great. He came a little bit late. I was going to have him induced on, I think, like a Tuesday, and he ended up coming on a Monday. And yeah, he was great. Water broke naturally. I got the epidural, and I swear he was just like 2 or 3 pushes, and he was out, even though he was like 2.5 pounds heavier than his older brother at birth. He was a 9-pounder, and it was so great. He came the right way.
I like
so that's hope for other moms. It can get easier depending. And then my third, I told my husband I've got all boys, so we'll start with that. The 2 under 2 boys was really hard on me mentally and emotionally because it felt like there were a lot more in my house, and it was really hard for me. And so I told them I need one of them to be in kindergarten and at school before we start trying for another one because I'm having a hard time. And so there's a 5-year gap to my baby. And he was due right around the time where my oldest was graduating kindergarten and my middle child was graduating preschool. And I didn't want to miss out on their ceremonies because I think it's important for family to be there. And so I talked to my OB who had delivered my middle child. And I said, hey, this is my situation. What do you think we should do? And she's like, well, I'll just take him at 38 weeks. He's doing great. It's not going to be a big deal. And so I was induced with him. And let me tell you, having your water broken by your OB hurts like a mother. It was awful.
Yeah, I've experienced that also, and I hate it every time.
It was awful. And, I still had to be on Pitocin. I've been on Pitocin for all 3 of my deliveries just because I stop at a 3 and I just don't progress further. I mean, I suppose if I was doing it at home, I might progress further, but in the hospital, I'm not progressing any further and they want to get the baby out. So, epidurals with all of them because it's just so painful with that. But yeah, he was my 3rd, and obviously things are nice and stretched out. So he took 1 push and it was great. And he just turned 5. I'm having a hard time with that too. My baby.
I understand that. And I know that it's hard on the last one. Everything feels so much more emotional,
Yeah. My kids keep asking if we're going to have another one. And I'm like, I just turned 35 and you guys are insane. And now we homeschool and that's a whole different story.
We do too. So I understand.
Yeah. I'm like,